you imagine what your community would look like without volunteers? If they disappeared tomorrow, local footy, it would be in disarray. You'd never get an amateur theatre show off the ground. And who would staff the local op shop or attend fires during the summer? Volunteering more broadly is in a bit of trouble. We know that, particularly with young people. So what is going on? And can we turn it around? Geoff Sharp is the CEO of Volunteering Victoria. And with me now, Geoff Sharp, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Oh, look, I'm very well, although it's a slightly bleak outlook for people like yourself, trying to encourage people, more and more people to volunteer for the many roles that we need, and finding that particularly with some cohorts, they are on the decline.
Well, I'll tell you a little secret about all these stats and figures. Actually, there's as much volunteering going on as there ever has been. It is different, though. And that's the big challenge, is it's actually shifting. So young people actually are, young people today are actually doing more volunteering than my lot ever did when we were young. They're far more conscious and aware. But how they volunteer and how they engage in volunteering is really different. And actually, the big challenge is how do our organizations and groups and the ways that we volunteer actually adapt to that change and how people want to get involved. Because we're kind of geared to, in many ways, kind of volunteering that used to be, not volunteering as it will be. And this is part of the challenge that we're trying to help members and the public, and it's a conversation we have to say, what does this look like? How do we help make these shifts? And how do we change what we do to be more attractive to young people and to get them involved? Because they're certainly just as passionate and willing to crack in and give a hand.
No doubt they are, but it can be quite it can be financially problematic for some people to drive to a particular place, take time out of their work schedule, for example, to do a volunteering role. Is that something that you're hearing?
It absolutely is. And so, what's kind of prompted this, there's been some research done by Volunteering Australia, and they've popped this up on their website. People are welcome to go and have a look. And they're talking about this in terms of, we're part of Volunteering Australia, but that website sort of features this. And one of the things is actually people aged 40 to 55 have actually a really marked decline and change in going from what we would call like formal volunteering to informal volunteering. But one of the big things that's really been identified is cost of living. And at first you kind of go, oh, what does cost of living have to do with volunteering? But it's exactly as you described. Like if you're having to choose, do I turn the heater on what's a little bit of a crisp day here in Victoria? Am I going the heater, or am I putting gas in the car so that I can actually go down and help out with the footy, or go and help with the op shop? All the things that you described. And as I'm always reminding our politicians, importantly, volunteering is one of the key things that actually makes an election happen. So they have to pay attention to volunteering. It's kind of everything that happens that's important starts somewhere with a volunteer, right? It's who we are. So we've got to do what we can to support volunteers at community, support organizations to do it, and to support organizations to figure out how to do the new ways of volunteering and how to engage people in different ways. And this week, National Volunteer Week, importantly, just to celebrate every sort of volunteering. Like, whether you're someone that's turned up for the last, X 100 years and you've been helping out with the group that you're passionate about, or maybe you're just going over the road to have a cup of tea with someone and just to reach out and care for them. It's all volunteering. It's the lifeblood of our community. And National Volunteer Week is all about celebrating that. But yeah, it's also having these kind of tricky conversations to have, which is to say, community is changing how we do community. Post-COVID, people are a lot more cautious. We're a little more inclined to be a bit of a homebod. We're kind of seeing all these trends. And I actually just literally walked in the door from a function with the Minister for Carers and Volunteers for Victoria, which a lot of people don't know what we have, but it's actually kind of cool that we actually have someone at a ministerial level that worries about these things. and she's just announced some funding so that we can actually do some research into this and really dig into these issues and say, what do we need to understand for Victoria? We know there's these trends at an Australian level, but what does it mean for us here in our state, and what does it mean across the different regions, and rural versus metro versus regional cities, and just all those kind of questions that we have to grapple with here in our context.
I'm talking with Geoff Sharp, who's the CEO of Volunteering Victoria. Now, I had a quick look at some of the stats, Geoff, and I noticed, you're saying that young people are volunteering at the same or greater rates as before. They're just doing it differently. Is that because they're doing it more online?
Yes, they're often doing it online. Or, the big thing is a lot of people don't actually even like calling what they do volunteering. They say, oh, volunteering involves a cup of tea and this sort of thing. And
volunteering's for old people, Geoff.
Yeah, absolutely. I get that, but for us, it's actually saying, anytime you're helping out someone in the community or just doing something because you're actually just passionate about it, you care about whether it's the environment or community or cause or social or sports club, then hey, that's volunteering. So often, we know that a lot of people are kind of underreporting what volunteering is, and that's part of what we want to dig into as well. But look, it's not the whole story, but we've got to accept that culture and society is changing, and we've kind of got to work out how do we keep what is the best bits of community, which is when we do things for other people just because they're important, not because we get paid for it or let's take anything away.
And of course, that is absolutely true. But if we're talking about volunteering online, that's not going to help the SES or the CFA or the aged care home that might need some people to come and drop by and do some work. Mick has just called in and said volunteers keep the wheels turning in many regional health organisations, and
Absolutely.
A lot of them are quite aged. We're leaning on them too much.
Yep.
You can't you can't volunteer for the local footy team being a boundary umpire or working in the tuck shop online. Like, you actually have to physically be there. So how do we change that perception of volunteering for younger people?
Well, what I'd say is it's not about changing it. It's about doing more of it. So it's like, for some people it might, and I want to kind of push you a little bit on this because one of the things that's actually been the most exciting for me is to see people who might be mobility impaired or haven't got the access to transport that others have, that they can participate in online volunteering. And what that means, I've met some amazing young people who are doing social media stuff for organizations and helping them with their website and setting up all of these things that, I go looking for a 14-year-old to understand my technology. So, it's like, like there's just some great opportunities for people who are maybe able to do so. Another great example is people who are able to help organize events or do online ticketing or finance, tracking, all that sort of stuff. Like, they can bring those skills and actually apply them. So, yeah, I totally get it because one of the canaries in this whole thing is actually sports clubs right now. They're doing it tough right now. They're struggling sometimes to get out enough volunteers. So again, not universally true. Let's not pretend this is true. But for some clubs, they just haven't got enough volunteers to put on an event. And anyone who's ever done a park run, how many people it takes to actually make just even a park run happen. You need people at everything, sports cars and anything you can imagine, from the obscure sports to the major sports. They all need volunteers. Yeah, you need people out there standing there, and that can be a real challenge. So part of it is saying, hey, you've been doing some stuff online. How about coming down to the game on Sunday and taking part? We'd love to have you, and let's catch up afterwards.
I'll give you a lift
and have a drink. Yeah, I'll give you a lift. There's all those things. And also, I think there's a lot of people that think, I can't volunteer. One of the stories I always tell is, there's a great program around the state called L2P plates, for a volunteer program of people helping young people who haven't got access to a vehicle or someone that can teach them how to drive, helping them do their 120 hours to get their P plates.
Mm.
Can you imagine if you were say in out-of-home care, you didn't have access to someone who had a car? How do you learn to drive? And people in regional and rural Victoria,
these programs are actually very strong, and
we get it. And
we've seen those flourish in a lot of places in regional Victoria. Hey, Geoff,
it's such an easy thing to do. But it's really different. So whatever your passion, there's a volunteer opportunity for you. That I can assure you.
There are some annual awards that you're launching today. Do you want to quickly tell us about them?
So the Volunteer Recognition Awards are actually up on our website as we're speaking, volunteeringvictoria.org.au. Literally, we just launched them about half an hour ago. And we have the annual awards up there. You can go on there and feel free to nominate as many people as you possibly can in the nomination form. And it's just about recognizing the amazing people who often don't get the kind of recognition that they deserve. They're a little bit hidden. And let's feature some of these amazing stories, because I'm sure for the people that are listening to me, they can probably say, oh yeah, I know a young person who's doing XYZ. We should really hear about them.
Yeah.
Then hey, let's nominate them in the awards.
Geoff, we will give out the details. Thanks so much for alerting us to it and for talking about this issue. I know it's one that's very close to your heart. We'll keep chatting about it too.
Lovely. Nice to speak with you, and good afternoon, everyone.
Geoff Sharp is the CEO of Volunteering Victoria. You can head to volunteeringaustralia.org to check out those awards. I can